Ancient civilizations are often romanticized for their monumental achievements, such as the construction of grand temples and the creation of poetry. However, a deeper examination reveals a disturbing truth about their religious practices, which often included horrific acts that challenge our perception of civility. Beneath the surface of these advanced societies lay rituals that involved extreme violence, showcasing a psychological pattern that transcended time and geography. Take the Carthaginians, for example. They were known for their sophisticated trade networks and remarkable advancements in mathematics and art. Yet, they also engaged in systematic child sacrifice, an operation that lasted over 6 centuries. The iconic image of a bronze statue of a bull god with outstretched arms over a furnace encapsulates this horror. Parents, under immense societal pressure, would place their living children into the statue's fiery embrace, all while music played to mask the screams. This brutal act was not merely an isolated incident but part of a ritualistic system deeply embedded in their culture. Archaeological evidence from the Tufet cemetery in Tunisia reveals thousands of urns filled with the cremated remains of children, indicating a methodical approach to sacrifice. The psychological torment involved in these rituals was profound. Parents were expected to suppress their grief, as any display of emotion could be seen as disrespectful to the gods. This calculated cruelty demonstrates how the Carthaginians rationalized their actions, believing that sacrificing their children would secure divine favor for their trade and military endeavors. During times of crisis, such as military defeats, the number of sacrifices would increase dramatically, reflecting a disturbing correlation between societal stress and the demand for more horrific offerings. Similarly, the Aztecs took human sacrifice to an extreme, transforming it into a form of performance art. Their grand rituals centered around the Templo Mayor in Tenochtitlan, where priests would sacrifice victims in front of cheering crowds. The elaborate nature of these sacrifices, which involved heart extraction performed with surgical precision, speaks to a culture that celebrated violence as a spectacle. The Aztecs believed that to ensure the sun's continued rise, they needed to feed it the hearts of the living. Like the Carthaginians, the Aztecs operated under a belief system that equated extreme suffering with divine favor. They developed a calendar filled with specific days for various types of sacrifices, each with its own ritualistic significance. This societal acceptance of violence as a necessary component of religious observance reflects a troubling psychological pattern, where the more horrific the act, the greater the perceived divine reward. The Celts, too, practiced brutal forms of sacrifice, with their druids employing elaborate methods of torture to predict the future from the screams of their victims. This intellectualization of violence further entrenched the idea that suffering could yield insights into divine will. The Celts, who contributed richly to art and mythology, paradoxically engaged in horrific executions that revealed a deep-seated belief in the necessity of sacrifice for societal and spiritual advancement. The Scythians represent another disturbing example, where the death of a king meant mass sacrifices of servants, concubines, and even pets to accompany him into the afterlife. This practice highlighted an extreme form of social hierarchy, where being selected for sacrifice was seen as a promotion rather than a punishment. The Scythians' belief that their social structures must be mirrored in the afterlife led to a systematic approach to mass murder, demonstrating how deeply embedded these psychological patterns were within their culture. In India, the practice of sati showcased how deeply ingrained societal norms could lead to widespread acceptance of extreme suffering. Widows were coerced into self-immolation as a means of honoring their deceased husbands, a practice justified by religious beliefs. This institutionalized violence not only solved societal issues related to widows but also transformed their tragic fate into a form of devotion. The normalization of sati reflected a pervasive belief that extreme suffering could serve a higher purpose, with women often pressured to conform to these expectations. Across these diverse civilizations, a consistent psychological pattern emerges. When people are convinced that extreme suffering serves a divine purpose, they are not only willing to accept it but may even compete to inflict it on themselves and others. This phenomenon, known as sacred violence, illustrates a disturbing aspect of human nature that still resonates today. We see echoes of this in modern extremism, where individuals sacrifice themselves for perceived greater causes. Ultimately, these ancient societies were not merely primitive. They were complex cultures grappling with the darker sides of human psychology. The question remains, what forms of sacred violence are present in our own time that future generations may look back on with horror? As history has shown, every civilization believes it is more advanced than its predecessors, yet each harbors its own deep-seated capacity for brutality disguised as devotion.